Hello and welcome to the 11th installment of my grading of all of the expansion cards in Terraforming Mars. This is actually the last episode on Venus Next. As always, if you want insight into the grading system, check out the description or click on the link in the top right hand corner to get to the first video, where I explain it all. If you want to know how I go about ranking the expansion cards compared to the base game cards, check out the first video of rating expansion cards, which is also linked in the description. And one last thing before we get started, let me know what you want me to cover next in this series. Should I start covering the promo cards that are available in the Steam version, or should I continue with the Colonies expansion? I'm really interested in your opinion on this as I'm still undecided. But let's kick it off. We start off the final episode of rating expansion cards for Venus Next with a crucial piece in any Venus combo: Venus Waystation. Similar to Space Station, Venus Waystation is an easily playable discount card that is obviously better the more cards with the respective tag you play. But this comparison quickly reveals the problems with Venus Waystation. When playing with Base Game, Prelude and Venus Next, there are 57 Space Tag Project cards and only 32 Venus Tag Project cards. Even worse, while Space Tags can be useful in any strategy, even Rush, thanks to a lot of the space events, Venus tags are only relevant for engine players going for that specific strategy. And lastly, while space tags include some of the absolute best cards in the game like GIA, Demos, NRA and Terraforming Ganymede, Venus tags are often quite bad. For example, you might have noticed in this series that no card so far has reached S tier. Based on these two arguments, one could expect Venus Waystation to be much cheaper than Space Station. But no, it just costs 1 MC less. All in all, Venus Waystation is not a great card on average. Sure, it can help you get a Venus strategy going if you draw it early enough, but in many cases it just isn't relevant at all or arrives too late. It's D tier for me. Next up, we have a card that was part of my top 5 Venus Next cards video ahead of the expansion's release on Steam. Venusian Animals. There are not a lot of cards in the game that are more niche with a higher ceiling than this one. Why is it niche? Well, the requirement of 18% Venus is the highest in the game, and since the parameter does not have to be maxed out for the game to end, there will be many games where Venusian Animals is just not playable in contrast to other one-point animals with higher requirements, like fish or birds. This means that if you want to play Venusian Animals and build a strategy around it, you will often have to push Venus yourself. So the card is niche since it requires a Venus strategy where you increase the parameter as fast as possible, and then keep a lot of science tags on hand to score points with Venusian Animals in the mid to late game. And why does the card have such a high ceiling? Basically, it can score an enormous amount of points. It's like a Jovian multiplier for science tags. Of course, with the downside that it requires you to delay the science tags until after you've played it, or otherwise you won't score any points with them. And this does not really work for cards like AI Central, Mass Converter or AGT, which you want to get down as fast as possible, as well as the respective cards required to unlock them or combo cards like Marsu and Olympus Conference. So Venusian Animals is a bit hard to play around. This combined with the fact that Venusian Animals is so niche means that it can never be considered a top tier card. I truly believe it can be one of the most broken cards in the game, but I will still place it in B tier. If I had the choice between it and another higher requirement science payoff like AGT, I'd pick AGT any day, and that one landed in A tier. Let's talk about another microbe card, Venusian Insects. Fricks games clearly try to improve the overall microbe combo with both Venus Next and later Colonies. Sulfur-eating bacteria and Venusian insects are both quite high-impact microbe cards arriving with Venus Next, but while the former is really strong, I think Venusian Insects is lacking, even though it's a half-point microbe card. Why? Well, let's first compare it to Ants, the only half-point microbe card in the base game. Ants comes online sooner on a track that is guaranteed to be increased, and it also allows you to steal microbes on top of scoring points itself. You might say, well, it also costs more, and if your opponents haven't played any microbes themselves, it's way less useful. Well, don't worry, there are two more cards to which we can compare Venusian Insects. Firstly, small animals. It only costs 1 MC more, also becomes playable after 6 steps on its respective track, and allows you to lower your opponent's plant prot by 1. Sure, the oxygen track is more expensive to increase, but again, it's guaranteed to go up in contrast to Venus. So in my opinion, small animals is miles better than Venusian Insects. You might say, but as a Venus combo piece, Venusian Insects is great. Well, not really. Let's compare it to the last card, Stratospheric Birds. That card becomes playable at the same level of Venus, and while it costs a bit more and is harder to play due to the floater requirement, it also scores double the amount of points. Not only on its own, but also from cards like Venusian Plants or Freya Biodomes. So all in all, while Venusian Insects is not the worst, it definitely needs some support to really shine. For example, it can score a lot of points with Enceladus when playing with colonies, but of course that won't influence my rating here. So in my opinion, Venusian Insects is a D tier card. It is useless if Venus doesn't get increased and offers too little upside if it's actually playable. Let's talk about a card we just mentioned, Venusian Plants. If you're going for a Venus combo, you basically always try to hit this, as well as Freya Biodomes in combination with either Stratbirds or Venusian Animals for a huge point bomb. But when compared to Freya Biodomes, Venusian Plants is kinda underwhelming. Sure, it's cheaper due to costing 1 MC less and not using up 1 power prot. But at the same time, it has a much higher requirement and yields 1 less point. You might say that the Venus bump on Venusian Plants can be useful to unlock Venusian Animals. But if you don't already have Stratbirds down, you don't really want to play Venusian Plants and lose the animal on it just to unlock Venusian Animals. And also, there's no other card you could unlock above 16% Venus, making the bump relatively low impact. All in all, Venusian Plants is just a weaker point bomb than Freya Biodomes. I've put that card in B tier, since it's a strong but really niche card that only makes sense in a Venus engine strategy and requires one of the 2 Venus animals to unlock its full potential. All of this is true for the weaker Venusian Plants as well, which is why I'm going to place it in C tier. And now we get to the last card of the Venus Next deck, the quintessential Water to Venus, which allows us to determine what the game thinks a Venus bump is worth, namely 9+3 MC. I guess there's not much to say about it. If you need Venus bumps to unlock certain cards, you're never sad to see this. But also, it's a space event, so we all know there's a ton of combo potential for it. That means if you have that combo potential on hand or played, Water to Venus can also just be used as a somewhat cheap point card, even if you're not going for Venus. But as always, you should be careful about increasing the Venus without payoffs on hand, since your opponent could profit from it. Because this card is just so plain vanilla, but also not really bad or great, I'm going to put it in C tier. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments whether you agree with my ratings, or if not, how you would have rated these cards differently. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and consider subscribing. And lastly, please check out my Twitch and my Twitter. See you in the next video.